Military actually does something useful and manages to get a camera inside the D-Reaper to see like what it looks like and see if they can find any weakness or anything that can help fight it, but the D-Reaper like eats the cameras, as the D-Reaper is known to do. So that helped, kind of. Meanwhile, Ip Man was able to track down his two Tamers, Ai and Mako. And after telling them that he's going to go fight the D-Reaper, he gains the ability to digivolve into Beelzemon whenever he wants, and he also gets wings and a new gun. And then he flies off to go help the kids fight one of the D-Reaper Sentinels. Also, I forgot to mention, the kids can't digivolve into Mega Level in this, like, dimension or whatever, because they can only do that in the digital world, because there they were made up of data and therefore had a lot less restrictions on reality. They can't, like, merge their DNA with their Digimon here. But this conflict doesn't last long, because in the next episode, after having the concept of the D-Reaper explained to us, our heroes meet this girl named Alice, who has this Digimon named Dovermon, who explains that he was sent from the digital world by the Digimon Sovereign to tell them that the D-Reaper is located in both the digital world and the human world, but the more vulnerable, exposed parts in the human world. So if the kids can destroy that part, then the other part should die also. He was also sent here apparently to kill himself, because by doing so, this makes it so that the kids can digivolve and merge with their Digimon to get Mega Level. Okay. Also, Alice is now out of the show and never seen again. But it is explained that she's related to this guy who's one of the monster makers, which makes more sense that she would have a Digimon, I guess. Also, more Jerry.
What is this chaotic world? These creatures mindlessly act on their own, but there is no value in the one. Only pain and doubt outside the collective.
So now the kids got their Mega Level evolutions back, they try a full frontal assault on the D-Reaper again, while Yamaki plans to try to re-establish a connection with the Ark that took the kids home from the digital world, while Jerry just disappears. And then during the fight, Takato gets grabbed by the D-Reaper, which I think should destroy him, but it doesn't because of plot reasons. And then it sucks him into the D-Reaper itself. And while inside, Takato discovers that the D-Reaper doesn't eat organic material like trees. But also, more shockingly, we discover that this is not the real Jerry. Rather, it is a creation by the D-Reaper meant to look like Jerry and analyze the real world before its invasion. And the scene where the Jerry clone reveals its true form and its plan to Takato is supposed to be really creepy and kind of emotional, and it totally is. I was originally going to play a video here that was supposed to capture the true creepiness of the scene along with the emotional distress, and also try to summarize the scene as well. But after a few failed attempts, I said screw it and made a summary video that was neither creepy nor emotionally engaging. And I'm going to play it for you now!
Oh, I'm glad I'm not a little kitty cat no more.
Yeah, the trick you learned could use a little work, I'm sure.
But I got a little trick that I think you'll love.
I don't want another trick that you think I'll love.
Watch me! Well, my legs are long.
Yes, our legs are long.
And my legs are long.
Yes, they're very, very long.
Wow, Eric, can you believe how high we are?
You guys are doing great.
Thanks, Moon.
'Cause our legs are long.
Yes, our legs are...
Okay, enough of that. Also, Kenta's here. Yeah, the scene where Takato talks to the D-Reaper is actually, really, really long. And a lot of stuff happens in between this conversation. Because originally, it was only the three main kids fighting the D-Reaper. But during Takato's conversation within the D-Reaper, Calamon, Kenta, Kazu, Suzy, and Beelzemon showed up. And Beelzemon and Calamon got captured by the D-Reaper while trying to save Jerry, who is captured within the D-Reaper, this self-pity orb. Also, Rio shows up, and he got Mega Level off-screen because he's that much of a badass, Digimon master. And we also learned that Kenta's Digimon, Marine Angemon, is ridiculously helpful against the D-Reaper. Like, it seems like it's almost specifically geared for the exclusive purpose of fighting the D-Reaper, which is very convenient for this exact situation. I would almost call it kind of lazy writing. But it always kind of confused me as to, why is Kenta the one that gets this, like, ridiculously plot-specific Digimon? Like, what is so special about him? Kazu's over there with, like, a nothing Digimon, whose big contribution to the D-Reaper fight was the fact that at one point in the story, it shoots rockets at a D-Reaper Sentinel that wasn't really doing anything. It didn't have any importance to the story, but he just did it anyway. The inequality between these two is ridiculous. Anyway, the kids escape from the D-Reaper and go talk to Yamaki, who says he's working on turning the Ark into like a flying bird that Takato and Guilmon could ride. We also have emotional scenes with Jerry's dad, we'll talk about it later. And Beelzemon is still a captive of the D-Reaper, but he escapes and he almost saves Jerry, but she's too scared to go with him, so he ends up getting killed, except not really. He gets saved by the Ark, who Yamaki and the others have named Grani. And you know what? I've talked enough about the plot. I've got to save stuff for the finale, so we're going to end it off here, and I'm just going to give my final thoughts. So in case you can't tell by the length of this video, I think a lot of stuff goes on in this plot. I really like the third arc. I think it's got a lot of good character moments that we didn't cover. And there's some pretty good fights, especially between Beelzemon and the D-Reaper. And I'm very happy to see a lot of the adults given things to do, other than just stand around and hope for the best. And the arc is pretty short, but for its own advantage, because this arc is kind of limited in the sense that the D-Reaper is introduced at the beginning of the arc, and it's not like, say, in Adventure or O2, where most of the arcs seem to be focused on the hero's journey to find the villain or discover who the villain was. Like in the first arc of Adventure, a large section of the arc is just dedicated to like wandering around, trying to find Devimon or just trying to find each other. They spend very little time like facing off with Devimon. This whole third arc is kind of like one long face-off with the D-Reaper. Because like I said, it was introduced at the very beginning of the arc, and it's just this giant expanding mass of goo that's slowly covering the city, and soon to cover the world. You see, like, this has been a very sci-fi season so far. And during this arc, we see, like, it hit its maximum sci-fi level. Because it's not so much about just fighting the D-Reaper and having the kids get a new evolution. It also has a lot to do with the scientists just trying to figure out what the D-Reaper is. And it's during these parts that you feel like this third arc is just supposed to be like a homage to old-fashioned sci-fi movies and stories. I know the D-Reaper is actually supposed to be like some kind of homage to Lovecraftian horror, but most of the story just feels like it's sort of B-movie-ish, old, stupid sci-fi stuff. Like, if you took out the kids and Digimon and just made this about the scientists fighting the D-Reaper, made it black and white and old-timey, and set it up as like, man's creation turns on its creators as a horrid monster, and it's up to these brave scientists to decipher the code of its existence and somehow send it into a parallel dimension, never to bother humanity again. Then I'd say it fits in right in there with the Blob, Godzilla, and the day the Earth stood still. But then again, I feel like I could say that about almost like any part of this story. And you know, as a whole, I really enjoy the plot of Tamers. There's not a lot I would do to change it, but I do have some like some complaints about it. I definitely think there are pacing issues in the first and second arc. Like, I already talked about the first arc, like, not really having a plot or, like, a goal the kids are working towards. It just seems like they're kind of meandering about. The second arc does have a goal, to find the Digimon Sovereign, but the whole story just continuously comes to, like, a halt, to try to set up things like Kenta and Kazu in the group, or trying to set up Rio, or just the kids going on little misadventures. You know, like, oh, we gotta feed the snake this sake, or milkshakes in the English version. Or Susie's gotta go play with the bunnies. Or during that whole episode where Shibumi just does nothing but explain, like, stuff about the Digivices and the digital universe. And some of that's helpful, but some of the other things, it's just like, we didn't need to know that, or we could have just assumed that. It just seems like the show starts needlessly explaining how things work. And I guess you could say it's important to the story, it's important to the characterization, but to me it just seems a little bit like just explaining stuff for the sake of explaining stuff. The other problem is that I don't know why, but for some reason the digital world is just not interesting to me. Or it hasn't been portrayed in an interesting way, I should say. And this season is no exception. I think it's just because I like to see like Digimon interact with the human world a lot more than I like to see humans interact with the digital world. But also this digital world just looks so boring, and I guess that's supposed to be the point because it's supposed to be a world in distress, but still, it's just boring. I know we have to go to the digital world eventually, but it just seems like it was the least thought out in many ways, you know. First off, the premise is kind of weird. It's like, yeah, we're gonna go talk to the Digimon Sovereign, even though he hates all of humanity, and we're just gonna send these couple of 10-year-olds. Nobody else can go except for them. They'll be our diplomats. I'm ranting now. I'm just gonna try to wrap it up by just finishing my thoughts on the third arc. The third arc, I think, is just really great. I love it to death. I don't really have too many problems with it, except for the problems I have with just about all the other arcs. And that's just with character stuff or characterization, because this season is very heavy on characters. And if you don't like a character or don't like the way a character is being portrayed in an arc, then it's just gonna bother you. But we're gonna talk about all that next time. For now, I'm just gonna end it. I'm very tired. This recording is like getting up to an hour in length, so I think I've talked enough. So I'm just gonna say good night, and next time we'll talk about Staccato. Bye.
Who will survive in America? 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 Who will survive in America?